Can you see how many people are live?
Okay, yes. Welcome everyone. I am going to record this as well. Record in the... Okay, welcome everyone on this special afternoon, Tuesday afternoon session with the Wize Move Society and Moving to the Future. We believe that the over 50 generation has a significant role to play in the creation of the future. We just need to tap into the knowledge, experience, and wisdom. We are aware that this generation is growing rapidly. They're living longer, are longer healthy and active, and are better educated than ever. There are many reasons why this generation needs to be part of the workforce a lot longer than they expected when they started their career. So the Wize Move Society intends to offer that 50 plus generation an environment to meet like-minded people from all over the world and all walks of life, to connect, have fun, and contribute to build a better future. To shift the way of thinking of society about the 50 plus generation and the significant role they can and should play in creating the future. And to change the mindset of that 50 plus generation, that they are aware they need to be an active member of society much longer, that they redefine their purpose, find their passion, are aware of their potential, and their ability to play an active role in creating their own future and the future of generations to come. And last but not least, have a positive social impact on the economy and society by creating new opportunities, projects, jobs, etc. So with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wize Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and opportunities that the 50 plus generation is facing, as well as how the Wize Move Society works together to create the solutions and play an active role in society. So the 50 plus generation is very clear about one thing. They're not on their way out, they're still part of the future. So for those of you who join us on Zoom, we love you to contribute in the conversation. If you want to contribute, please show yourself with your camera on. If you do not want to be seen on screen, share your questions or comments in the chat. If you've joined us on Facebook, welcome everyone. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments. So my name is Ingun and I'm the founder of Moving to the Future and the Wize Move Society. I'm here today with my co-host, Dr. Tatiana Rowson, and our guest, Nicolette Wykeman. Nicolette is a midlife career coach, the owner of Silverforce Coaching, and ambassador of Aging 2.0. Well, today we have a very interesting topic on the table. So how to encourage an aging workforce to work past retirement. But before we dive into this topic today, I would like to ask my co-host Tatiana to say a few words and to give our guest Nicolette the opportunity to introduce herself. So I would like to start with Tatiana. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Ingun. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you are. So I am a coaching psychologist and a researcher and academic. So researching pretty much midlife transitions and beyond, and what we do in the world of work. So I'm really excited today. I know I say that often, but I'm really, because that's the topic of my PhD. That's where I started my research career, is looking to over 50s, working for longer. So I'm delighted to have Nicolette here with us. So Nicolette, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to have a whole hour discussing this, yes, very, very important topic. So perhaps a bit of background about myself. I'm Dutch and I've been living in the UK since 2009. And I've been in career coaching since 2003. So I would say over 18 years. And I've had the odd 50 pluses while I was working in the Netherlands. But when I was doing my postgrad here in the UK, because I wanted to have a UK qualification, I came across the book, The 100-Year Life from Linda Grattan and Andrew Scott. And I was like really amazed. I thought, this is all interesting, all this research, but what's actually really happening? What are we doing about this? And so after I finished my postgrad, I wanted to do my master, and I thought, I've got a research topic. So I did a research about HR's policies and strategies to keep the aging workforce, to retain and retrain the aging workforce. And I picked two industries, banking and pharmaceuticals, because I thought it would be quite interesting to see a bit more factory research-based, pharma and services. And it was a very small research, obviously. It's not like a PhD, but I was quite shocked with the outcome and we're talking about 2017. So I did the research 2017, beginning of 2018. There were no official policies. The only official, between brackets, policy there is and still exists is stopping the official pension age. So since 2011, you are allowed to work past retirement age. So you can't be fired, so to speak, because you reach that age. But that's actually the only real materialization I've discovered in my research and interviews. And that's one I thought, okay, it's all interesting. We do a lot of research. This country, we've got many organizations talking about longevity, but I thought, okay, what are we actually doing? So I'm actually one of those career coaches who actively midlife, I would say midlife, later life. I'm a bit in transition. Am I midlife or later life? Coaching people over 50s and over 58, 60 even, to help them making career moves or upskilling. I'll explain a little bit about that later. Yeah, to make sure that we keep that workforce. As Ingun said, it's a really valuable young workforce, because a lot of people, I don't think, realize that we're actually halfway. If you think about how long we now can live, I can hopefully turn 85. I'm 53. So if I would stop at 67, wow, that's going to cost the state a lot of money, even if I have a pension. But if all of us would stop at that age, we are missing out on talent. And I think also, think about if you retire for 20 years, what are you going to do? And that's an interesting thing. A lot of people have not even thought about that. So yeah, so I see the needs not only for the society, but also for the people themselves to stay, and it can be paid or unpaid, but stay in a career for longer periods. So that's a little bit in a nutshell, my background.
Your background, yes, thank you. Well, I know that Tatiana recognized about the research being done and the action being taken, because we have talked about that already for so many times, that this is an issue. There's a lot of money for research, but then when you're talking about, so what are we really going to do? Then it's okay, well, let's do another research. So that is an issue, absolutely. So, but Tatiana will probably talk about that. I know you have prepared just an introduction, Nicolette. So it is about how and why you got interested in coaching this aging workforce.
Yeah, so would you like me to put up my slides, or shall I just?
Yeah, whatever you want, what feels comfortable.
Yeah, so as I say, let me share the screen. That might be good to start with. Yeah, 1 second, and get the slideshow. It's always a nice. Okay. Why doesn't it? Okay, I'm sorry. This is not very handy. Sorry. Okay, how to encourage aging workforce. It's me. So I think, as I said, the interest is because obviously I'm in my 50s myself, but also if you look at this data, it's like we are used or brought up the pyramids. Remember, there are always enough people coming in, and then at a certain point we pass away. And as you can see, this is worldwide, because obviously most of my knowledge is from the UK and a bit of continental Europe. But since we're talking here from an international perspective, this is international. So it's not only an issue for us, it's an issue worldwide. So I think this was quite good to show where we are if you look at 2050. And if, for instance, in the UK, by 2070, we will have an additional 7.5 million people over 65. And think about, we have only 67 million in total. That's a huge, and I think even now, and I'm looking at Tatiana, if I'm correct, about 50% is already over 50 in the workforce, if I'm correct. Is that correct,
It's
Tatiana?
a third.
A third, but we're going into that 40, 50% in 20 years, 30 years?
Oh, yes, very likely. We reached the largest 50 population that we will ever have, because no other age group will be that large.
Yeah, so exactly, and there's less coming in, and yeah, for several reasons we need to cherish that workforce. But yeah, and I've changed my career when I was in my 30s, but now I'm 20 years and I've upskilled, so I've diverted myself into like a niche market, so to speak. But that's another thing. An average career in the US is about 4 years, and in general, it's 6 years. So when my dad used to work for a bank and he stayed there his whole life and progressed within the bank, people still do, but it's quite common that the lifespan of a job or a career is 6 years. So we need to keep on actually reinventing ourselves much more often than we used to in the past. And and that's also, of course, because of technology. Yeah. So what I think is a good one as well to show here, so the preconditions to work past retirement. So as I said, like there's a lot of things on research, but what I notice is, okay, what are the conditions for people actually to work and to keep on working? And what I think is also a good one to stand still with is you've got the knowledge workers, like the professionals. Think about a bank, for instance, the IT. But we also have a lot of vocational skilled workers. Think about electrician, plumbers. And then we have the manual workers, people in the factories. And that can be like in pharmaceuticals, it can be in steel, it can be anywhere. So I thought it would be actually quite interesting to see what would they need. And this is, by the way, my own source. This is what I created, but I have never proven or discussed it with government if this is the truth, but this is what I think and what I've seen and read and heard. Knowledge workers have a really good professional network. So quite often, if you want to continue, what happens is that on LinkedIn, give an example, you reach out to people, you say you're open for new challenges. That is a massive, the business network is how people reach out to them. And you can do it in different ways, and I'll get back to that later. It doesn't always need to be full-time employment, but that is a way for a knowledge worker to continue what he or she has been doing. I think for vocational skilled work, a professional network is more, let's say about electricians, is the group they work in. You won't find them on LinkedIn. And a manual network, manual worker, I don't think has a professional network in that perspective, like online. If you then look at social network, think about the pub. Now we can go to the pub again. Think about playing golf, playing football. Social network is for professional person very important, but not as important as a professional network. So that's what I tried to put in this matrix. Like, is it likely, most likely or unlikely, as you can see on the bottom, if someone would continue working? And when vocational skilled worker and manual worker, that's why I think that's most likely that it would be an encouragement for them to stay in work. And reskilling, upskilling, it might be good to give, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that. Reskilling really means like you learn something completely new. So you go from, I've been a consultant in telecoms and now I'm a career coach. Upskilling means that within your profession, think about an IT, someone working in IT, then actually goes into coding or in data analytics. So you learn new things to stay relevant in your current role. And I think for the knowledge workers, that's what's happening quite often. Think about the courses within IT or within a bank. And I think upskilling, yes, vocational skilled workers, but not as, well, how to say, as likely as, for instance, for a knowledge worker. And upskilling in a factory, I think things will be automated. Upskilling is more that people might lose their job. So the upskilling opportunities for a knowledge worker are much higher for people to remain relevant when they're older than for a manual worker. Does that make sense what I'm explaining here? Yeah. And then a sabbatical, that is of course something you can, it's, dare I say it, it's more common, what I've seen as a professional worker, that people do take sabbaticals. In the 100-Year Life, I liked, for instance, when Andrew Scott and Lina Grattan said, why not take a sabbatical when you're 40 or when you're 60? We all try to have that gap year when we finish our university. But actually, if you think about how long you're going to work, why not having those gaps in between? And we don't do it because it's not normal. Whereas some people come back from a half-year trip or half-year learning a language, doing something completely different, and then actually being recharged to stay and work longer in their profession. I'm not sure if that's within a vocational skilled and manual worker so known to take a sabbatical. That's why I kept that empty. But there's no academic proof for that. Flexible working, I think, specifically now, it has proven with COVID, but I think for everyone, think about, for instance, the manual worker not needing to work night shifts. So flexible hours, flexible days, flexible, and that you have a say in how you want to keep on working. For all of the three categories, I think that is a really important one that will encourage people to work longer. And the same actually with the flexible workspace. So think about if you're getting older. I am sitting on a stocker chair, so I move, not now, but normally to keep my back in balance. So if people need small adjustments, then I think, again, people will most likely continue to work. And specifically if they can, as an example, you might have heard of that BMW, that's quite a long time ago, in 2007, they actually had a whole belt on in a car factory where all the people were working, and they didn't like it. So there were special chairs and more breaks, less standing. And in the end, they were actually one of the best performing belts, the conveyor belts. So that was quite interesting. In the end, they were very proud of their belt, whereas before they felt very stigmatized. Like, why would we have that? So that's actually quite an interesting one, flexible workspace. For Aging 2, I'm an ambassador for Aging 2, as Ingun told. And Aging 2 is set up in the US. And I'm the ambassador for Brighton here in the UK. And they are looking at innovative ways for the aging people, not just work, also health and mobility. And this is something they also do a lot of research in. And I hosted a webinar on hearing loss. That people in their 50s sometimes literally stop working. They're thinking it's their mental health, but then they find out actually it's a hearing, and open workspace is not always very good for if you have a hearing issue. So by adjusting those bits or having a separate place or adjusting the acoustics, then actually with small adjustments, you can keep people in work longer. So it's quite fascinating to see what is all around, what you can do as an employer to keep people working longer. And so, as I said, as you can see, if you look at professional network, social network, reskilling, upskilling, sabbatical, flexible working, flexible workspace, I think there are 7 preconditions. I think so the knowledge worker most likely will work past retirement. Vocational skilled worker, I think, needs a little bit more encouragement. Also depends on how physical intensive that role is, I think. But again, there, I think flexible workspace and flexible working plays a really major role to keep them, and we need them working longer. And a manual worker, unless he or she will actually change completely in a role, I don't think they will work past retirement, if not all the things are ticked. Yeah, so I thought that was quite an interesting one, just to think about how it will work from different professions. Okay, I'll stop sharing for the moment, if you have any other questions.
Okay, thank you for this first explanation. And I really do believe that in this group, knowledge workers, the steps that they can take to really work longer in that field is you know, the opportunities are you know, are more extended, while the other two groups, we really need them.
Yeah, and I think that's the group, and I know it's not that we always focus on that, but that's the group, and I don't want to talk politics, but for instance, in the UK, we will really, in a few years' time, will face the difficulties by not being able to easily attract people from outside to work here. And good electrician, plumbing, also in the construction, it's already a problem to get good craftsmen.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, and of course they can train people up, but you have to have the people willing and interested to get into that profession. So that's, I think, definitely something which I've never read or not much read about. So I think, yeah, it's a very important one.
Okay, so that is why we have Tatiana here.
Thank you.
A lot of research and read a lot. So
oh, that's my daily life. So it's interesting to look at all these segments of the society. And I think for this conversation and for the people that are listening is thinking, okay, what can I do? I'll get back. There's a lot of ways to encourage people to work for longer. If you are an employer, if you are a society, we are a long way to go to be an age-inclusive society. Broadly. I'm saying globally. We're not. Even when we attach the idea of wisdom to people, is wisdom with passivity. You're wise, so you sit there and be wise and placid, not wise and a go-getter. It's so there's a lot we can do. But there are two choices when we think about that as individuals, as our own role is. We can accept or we can change society by being that extra person that made the shift, that decided to take control of working life. The numbers are still starting. People tend to stop working. They don't come back necessarily. They become what they call discouraged worker. You want to work, you are free to work, but you're not looking anymore because you receive a no so often that you don't have the desire to do that again. And I think the work Nicolette do, then it can be really impactful, getting together with a coach, getting together with a community, and maybe think laterally. Maybe it's not this anymore. Maybe it's something else. Maybe even my purpose might have changed now, and work on finding those opportunities that are out there. So I'm going to pass on to you, Nicolette, if you want to talk a bit about the kind of clients or the kind of work you do in helping people to.
I think I've put that again on a little slide, so I will share that again. Some fun and games, this. Okay, 1 second. So how can career coaching make a difference? Well, you probably know, Tatiana, as well, that instead we are not only talk about it and how we can make the difference as an individual, but also I think employers are trying hard. They call it in the UK, I'm not sure internationally, but the Midlife MOT, you probably know, Tatiana. I of course look at that as well, but then excluding the financial and physical health. And what I've noticed, like for instance, Legal & General, so quite some really big organizations, they have the capacity and they do embrace it. In the Netherlands is a very good example. Ingun, you might know. So every person over 45, this was actually starting in pre-COVID 2019. You can actually ask the government for an opportunity to do some midlife career coaching. Basically, you're 45, what would you like to do? And there was quite a lot of money actually available. I spoke with the department who actually organized all that. And I think that would be really great, because this here, I call it MOT, not that I call it a midlife MOT like you do with a car, but in the UK, that's where I see it's been done within organizations, to literally sit down and talk with people. But as I said, about a financial plan, physical health, what I do is I look at people's strengths, but mainly I start with the values and drivers. So what are the things, what are the motivations to work? What is giving the energy? What is taking the energy? Some really simple exercises, which a lot of people have not even thought about. I never did, just were like in that, I say, like daily routine of work. Some things they like, some things they didn't like, some things comes natural, they did not even think about it. And that is really good at a certain point to literally stand still. Okay, I'm on crossroads. I always say to my clients, you're in your 50s, and it can be 50, 55, 58, but you have at least 20 years where you can contribute to society and have a meaningful work. I think if I compare myself to when my father was 50, which is obviously about 30 years ago, they had young children, it's completely different society. And I think, and perhaps Tatiana, you know as well, we still have that same vision of people who are 50. And okay, yes, my body might be a little bit 50, but my mind, I'm still 25. I'm eager to learn and explore. And that is, I think, still not always communicated well. And so we're still in a stigma like 50 is old. And I think that is, again, something we have to probably prove, and I'll get to that a bit later. We actually have to walk that extra mile to prove that we are actually still worth it to invest in as well, because we would like to learn and to contribute. Yeah, so as I say, so midlife MOT, I don't really personally like the word, but I put it here to show, so where are we talking about skills, strength, value, drives. And then there will be loads of opportunities what someone can do. Like you can change your career, you can adjust your career, perhaps you can take voluntary redundancy, and with that money, you don't have to work, but you can work and have like a non-exec role on the side. So that is the conversations I have with people. I go back to the basics, see what they enjoy, what energizes them, and then look what type of roles, or they will investigate what is it actually what they really want to do the next 20 years in their career. I think that's in a very nutshell where is it all about in the end. And then here you see the self-esteem. Oh, sorry. At the end of the day, that is all about the people as well. That after having about 5 to 6 coaching sessions, you don't need to have like 20 or 30. It's not therapy. I'm quite a practical coach. Like people come with a question, a career question. So I'm not a life coach. Career, of course, life is around it, but I focus on mainly what they would like to do in their second, third, maybe even fourth career. And I think what it's quite good to see what type of careers, and I will explain a bit more, people I've seen in my practice. Portfolio career, I think that is the example of the modern 50-plusser, so to speak. You might work part-time in an organization. You might, for instance, I create ceramics. I might want to earn a little money of that. It's my hobby, which I would like to continue for more time and maybe make that into a profession. So portfolio, and you see it actually, to be honest, you see it a lot with young people as well. A lot of people do actually 1 or 2 or some even 3 things at the same time. Photography, writing articles, editing, do a bit of coding. So I think it's not only for us above 50, a good chance to continue longer, but I think it's also something general in society. The other one, which I think is a very common one I see, I do a lot of outplacement. So I see a lot of people who've been made redundant, and then they get some career coaching offered from the organization. And depending on what people want to do, so they tell me in our first intake what they're interested in, and we take it from there. And I see quite a few people in phase retirement have to think about some, I can't mention names, but some large organizations. Some people started when they were 18 and moved up within the organization and then took a volunteering redundancy. And they are late 50s and quite a few of them don't need to work. And some people want to continue working. So they can also sometimes, instead of taking the redundancy package, do phased retirement. What do I mean with phased retirement? Is that they will remain a few days per week working in the same organization. And I mentioned that word before, cliff edge retirement. It also gives an opportunity that some people can train someone else to take over your role. What I've seen also with some organizations, they move their organization, some departments abroad for financial reasons. And then dare I say it, the older person is there to train up and be there still on the side to make sure that department is running smoothly. So that's phased retirement. Turn hobby or sidekick into paid business. I've had someone recently always collecting vintage antiques, small bits, not big furniture. And she set up a business, like an official business, website, registered herself. Again, this is not for everyone, I have to be really honest. This is specifically an example of someone who could take a nice payout from her work and then could turn a hobby into a paid business. And it's interesting, and I've seen it, well, over 100 people, 150 people or more. I hardly ever have met someone who want to sit down and do nothing. So there's always something, because they all realize I can't play golf for 20 years in a row. And I find that quite amazing. Because if I look at my parents, and there's nothing wrong with my parents, but they never took up something like this. They just retired and enjoyed themselves, enjoyed life, so to speak. So I think there's definitely a trend already changing of the 50 plus generation. Start a new business. So that's something completely new. After, as I said, what are your drivers, your motivators? I've had someone who was always very practical with hands, DIY, and he's now actually creating furniture without education, but from all the things he did in his life, he said, you know what, I'm going to do that as a business. And again, this is an example for someone who has the financial ability to do so. But you can also think about starting your business, consultancy business. People who've been working, let's say, in water management or in tax, it's a good opportunity to work how they want to work and turn that into a business. Complete career change. Think about myself. I used to work in research and telecommunications, and I retrained as a career coach in 2003. So this, I gave that example of Lucy Calloway, an FT editor after 30 years is now a teacher in math and now economics. So, and the funny thing is, if you confront people with the fact how many years and how many healthy years they have ahead of them, they actually realize, oh yes, I can actually change career. When I changed, when I did my postgrad here in the UK, I wasn't the oldest lady in the room, or the oldest person in the room, I should say. So I think that's another shift you see, that starting an education is not only for the young people. I think they call it the third university, or the third phase university. So yeah, that's another trend. Upskilling, which I already mentioned, that is within the organizations. A good example is IT coding, but actually if you think about electricians or plumbers, get into sustainable energy. So move up what's happening in society and make sure you stay relevant. So that's another example. Volunteer, trustee, or non-executive director. I see quite a lot of that. People want to give back and think about the combination, not always wanted to work full time anymore. That's, I would almost say 85% of the people want to work less hours. They feel they've contributed. They feel also they want to explore other things. and volunteering, a trustee of a school. I've got someone from an autism charity, non-exec roles. That's very popular as well. So that's I see very often. And then expert consultant is a bit, I said it already, for the business starting. It's for people, for instance, who've done risk management, tax. So you've done it in your profession, and then you can start your own business because of all the knowledge you have in that area. And sometimes, as we are all aware, you are made redundant sometimes via the front door, but then hired as an expert via the back door as a consultancy. But you have, of course, the opportunity to take up other projects as well. So that's something I see a lot as well. But again, that one is quite often, dare I say it, with the knowledge workers, but you also see it, dare I say it, with the vocational skilled people. They quite often are employed and have their own small business on the side to grow. So you can say that it's their expertise as well. And senior apprenticeship, I think that's another one, which I think is a really good one. They do that quite a lot, again, within IT, but I also know KPMG, women returners. But senior apprenticeship is also for people who want to work something new, or want to learn something new. And I think that's going to be increasing as well. Specifically because we can't get the younger generation coming in. So you have to offer for seniors. And there's a lady, it's called Brave Starts. And I know that lady, Lucy, standing via my Aging Too. She started a charity where she helps people shadowing, so that you can actually, and it's also specific for the over 50s, over 60s who want to still work, have something in mind, but not sure if it's for them. So that's what she offers. She works with people, for instance, from the throwdown with the pottery, from people running a cafe. And then instead of paying, it all goes back into the charity. So I think that's a really good one for people to give opportunity if something is for them or not. So this is from my experience. I think it's quite a lot of different things you can do to remain relevant. But as I said, most people, at least what I realize and see, who don't need to work full time, would like to slow down a little bit when they're older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are different opportunities and different choices for everyone. Thank you, Nicolette, for all these wise lessons. You mentioned somewhere that you see, and that might be in the UK, that you see that employers are trying hard. So the employers are trying hard. I'm reading right now a report of the OECD of 2020 that more and more employees realize that they need to do something, but only 5% is really acting on it. So it's still, and maybe I see Tatiana, I see you. Maybe you a question: why is it so important also for the employers to make sure that this generation stays active?
Tatiana, would you like to say something?
Tatiana?
Yes, I can talk about it. I think that there's an economic rationale that the employer should be thinking about. If you look into certain industries, healthcare, engineering, they just don't recruit enough people. And I know in the US, and I know Patty's on the line with us. So in the US, we had a huge number of nurses unretiring and coming back to work during COVID for a number of reasons, because they felt it was their duty to contribute, because there was an opportunity to come back. And I know, because we're doing a piece of research there, that the regulations in certain states were relaxed for that to happen. So there was a willingness to encourage the nurses to come back to the workforce. So it takes the regulations, the hospitals, and the nurses themselves to work together to make that happen. So the question we are left with that story is that going to change going forward, or we're going to revert back to the same old? I don't think that economy is sustainable if we go back to the same old. The idea that no, let's just someone else young come along, but there's not that many young people out there flying around. And I think that the beauty of technology, actually technology can help us to even enable people that might not be in wonderful health or wonderful mobility, but the mind is working, they can still contribute.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's definitely true. And again, I can't mention company names, but I know that some companies, specifically with that hearing loss, I remember I mentioned that company specifically was really alert on after that incident happened, and also making sure they were actually offering the adjustments. And HR played a very important role, but also the line manager. And also for that person who would move around within the organization. That's another thing, as Tatiana said, you might not be mobile, but as long as your mind works and you want to work, it's also a courtesy not to constantly have to discuss your disability. But those people, as I said, it was already known, and then that person could move around much easier with the adaptations being done. And I think that's definitely true. It's not, and again, I'm not knowing the source, but the interesting thing is that also I have to be really honest, I'm very much a promoter, and also with my candidates, but quite a few people, I have to be really honest, do say, oh, but probably after a few years, I'm now the expert, people know me, but then when they don't know me, so probably around 70 or 67, I will stop. So there's still a tendency, and I saw it was from 2019, we have only 500,000 people who are over 70 working. Now I'm looking at Tatiana, that's what I found, and of course that's not many, is it?
Yeah.
No, the numbers decline massively.
Yeah.
But we do, well, we had a conversation about the brain last time.
Yeah.
So we do stereotype, and we use shortcuts in our brain to understand reality. And one of the stereotypes we do is age stereotype. So we think, oh, we reach that age, and then that's the stereotype. What's interesting about stereotypes is not that we apply to other people, because that's quite obvious, but it's the fact we apply to ourselves. Even when we select some clothes in our wardrobe, we say, is that for my age or not? And that is a stereotype.
Color
True.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've grown up with a wonderful example. You know, my mother, she worked into her 80s, and you know, she was doing a paid job for a long time, but then she became a host in a museum. And actually, what you saw happening is that year after year, HR had to prolong the insurance that they were able to have people working for them in that age group. So even at 80, they came and talked to her and said, so how long do you still want to work? And then she said, I think it's enough. You know, so it's really great that also these organizations, they have to start preparing right now, and it cannot be incidents happening at the work floor. They have to start preparing now that policies and all kinds of regulations that they have in their organization, that they start preparing, that they need this older workforce to keep them in the workplace.
You know what is.
Yeah.
You know what is quite difficult with that one? Like for instance, in this country, you're not allowed to ask, because that might be ageism or discrimination. So if I'm working and I'm 67 and I have that conversation with my HR manager, he or she can't ask, so Ms. Wykeman, till when would you like to work? Whereas before, obviously, you can so on 65, Nicolette, you will retire. So the coming 2 years would be good to see who would be your replacement. So that conversation is already quite complicated in that perspective.
It is, yeah. And yes, and this is the example of in the UK, of course, and we have many other countries. I love to because I see Patty here in the call, so I really would like to involve you as well. You're in the US, obviously,
Yes.
and
Yes. And the nice thing about where I work at right now, where I'm seeing, and I work for the government, is that once somebody retires, they're coming back part-time because we're keeping a lot of the knowledge. We have about one unit that is all of them, almost all of them have retired and come back working part-time. Because what we're finding is, like you said, with the people aren't staying like they used to anymore. They're staying only 6 years. So they're, they really need, I'm seeing the older people, when you hire the older people, they stay longer.
That's a definite advantage,
really,
Patty.
Yeah, they really stay a lot longer. So I think our organization is starting to see that because they're trying to have incentive to have people stay longer, because you train this young child, you train this young person, and then all at once they're gone after 2 or 3 years, and we're in my job, I'm a social worker, where we have a lot of the knowledge of the things that have happened before. We've done different services. And so I feel that I'm very, my knowledge is very welcome in where I'm working. So I'm very lucky on that. But yeah, because we need, this is the older generation, and we have a lot of the knowledge. And we're more dedicated, I think, than a lot of the younger ones.
And one of the issues as well, and it is a big issue for many of the people who are moving towards retirement, their retirement funds are not sufficient to live until they're, because, well, you say 85, Nicolette, statistically, you probably live into your 90s, and already a generation is born that will live into their 100. So, retirement was invented, when we would live 10 years after 65 and not 30. So there is a lot to do about, you just cannot stop working because you still have to build up your retirement fund and also live on it on the way.
I think that's a really good point, Ingun. And I actually have not said what's another reason why is it so important to keep working. Well, obviously, at finance, we changed jobs quite often, whereas before you had one pension scheme. And I remember that I actually lost a lot of money because I was moving jobs in the past. Yeah. And then, of course, personal, of people divorce, so they have alimentation, kids care, so that's another thing. Health, obviously, in the UK, we have a health service, but yeah, some people need to pay the bills. Yeah, and as you said, another thing, of course, incentive in general for the government, that's something I can't get, and I'm looking at Tatiana now, because she's in the UK as well. We also contribute, the aging workforce also contributes to society. We via national insurance, and then of course having more money to be the consumers. So
this is, I thank you, Nicolette, for touching on that. This is a very, very interesting figure. It's just being published in the UK, and it won't be too different from OECD countries. So we can expect a similar proportion. For every pound spent in the economy, 60p comes from an over 50.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. These numbers are crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
So these, we are workers and we are consumers, and we are keeping the economy alive.
Yeah.
So it's very, so it's the message. I know we talk a lot about people going to work, but there's another message there as well. If you have a business and you're not catering for over 50s as well, you should wake up.
That is interesting. I've done in another life, no, not in another life. I also so apart from midlife career coach, I should have said at the beginning, I also coach business school students at Imperial College, and every year there's a week that they have to set up their own business and coming up with marketing, and it's so interesting to see to challenge them that they quite often target the market with no money. Because it's not sexy to make diapers for the elderly, to give a very stupid example, but Yeah, to think about what is the need, or think about a travel organization to adjust for people with money but with different needs. Oh my goodness, that does actually say there's so much money to.
Clothing, I think the numbers are even higher with clothing. You know, that it's, you know, you don't even have to look at the diapers, but you know, what people wear is that might be more sexy. But these numbers are even higher what they're spending in 50 plus. Yeah.
And also, this is still the generation, dare I say it. I don't know about the generation coming after us, so to speak. So the millennials and the Gen Z when they turn 50, but that's different discussion. But that's going to be an interesting one as well, how to look at what their needs are and how they look at things. The stigma of a 50-plus-year-old might have gone by that stage. But at the moment, it's true. It's still,
yeah. And that group is a lot smaller, you know, the millennials and the Gen Z, you know, they cannot even cope with what is, you know, even compete with what is happening.
But what's interesting with, because I've coached those people as well, they don't even think about pension or retiring. They don't even think they will ever retire. So the retirement discussion is quite, dare I say it, for the 50-plussers and the 60-plussers. You won't have that discussion about retiring. It doesn't even, it's not even an issue for them.
It is interesting. I think there's a bit less talk on retirement among young people. I think there's awareness that first investment funds, share stock exchange doesn't give as much money as before. So funds don't grow. So, and inflation ends up catching up. So there's investing is a bit tricky because it's just the money you put to one side that doesn't grow any other way. And there's an awareness that these money pots are shrinking, and it's just the nature. We do have to provide other services with the money that goes into taxes in many countries. So work is an important part of, you know, having a little bit of disposable income and having a good life. So it's interesting. Alongside of that, one thing that I'm very passionate is the idea of creating workplaces that allow people to be healthy. Because health is the thing that if it's compromised, that's very difficult to do anything else.
Yeah, it's true. That should be actually number one.
And we do get older, but we want to get older in a healthy way. Otherwise, we have a huge spending on healthcare, and you know, that is another big issue. Absolutely,
we want to grow old, but we don't want to be old.
We want to add life to our years, also not years to our life.
That's a good one.
We just have another couple of minutes, and I really want also to make the shift to the Wize Move Society, because what we are doing there is we completely focus on that 50-plus generation and what their next move will be, because there's all sorts of directions that they can go. And you've seen with all the examples which Nicolette gave, you know, there are so many opportunities that we can pick from. So it's really great. But you know, that is, especially from that generation, is demands a lot, you know, to go through a transformation process like that. It doesn't happen overnight, you know. This is really something that you have to work on, and that is really great. If you look at what we're doing on the Wize Move Society, you know, we are looking at that health part, you know, how can you age in a healthy way? That is important. How can you build up new support systems? How can you build up new professional and social networks? That's important. How can you upskill and reskill your knowledge and do anything that you can? And that is a process, you know. You don't start by just starting a business. You start by, you know, taking the steps to go through that transformation process, so that in the end, you know, we are at that point that you really can start that business. And by the way, starting a business when you're older, the chances that you make it successful are way higher than when you're younger. So being that entrepreneur and starting that business is very interesting. And we're also going to work with that corporate environment. So, or that, you know, the professional environment, how you're we will mention it. That is okay. But and I just love to see that there are so many great examples already of people who have gone through that process and made that shift and have made so many choices. But I think, you know, already here, I'm a great example coming from the IT industry that you're going to do something completely different. And Nicolette, you are doing the same, and maybe Tatiana, she will start a business somewhere on the way. You never know. But you know, it is something that we see happening. And this morning I was talking to this wonderful lady, 66, in Australia, and she became an expert on blockchain and cryptocurrency over the past year. She's now getting roles and positions that you cannot even imagine, you know. That is, and you know, when I just listen to the story, then I feel like, you know, just keep on talking, you know. It inspires me so much to hear stories like that. So it's really great. And, you know, to take the time to do that together, to go through a transformation process together. And we've talked about this also, you know, Tatiana, if you cannot do that transformation on your own. You need others, you need that input, you need, you know, someone to challenge you, to inspire you, and your neighbor is not going to do that. And your brother is not going to do that. You know, they know you in a certain way. And when they see you make that move, they will tell you, oh no, you know, they will want to keep you close to themselves. And that's, you know, that is, you can understand that they love you. They want to just be close. But, you know, if you need to transform, you need to do that with people who are in a similar process and who can inspire you.
I think it would almost be good to have actually examples like yourself, like myself, that you actually have almost like a booklet or like a blueprint for, okay, what can we all do? That and I think I shared things, but there's so many more things, and I think Tatiana as well will have examples, and that's, I think people need to have a bit of a wake-up call as well, in general.
Well, that's actually is one of the goals, you know, to one of the outcomes, to share our stories and start writing those stories and collect them in a and maybe publish them. That is the next step. But storytelling and sharing what the process is, what you have gone through, that your journey, that is so inspiring for others. And so we're absolutely going to work on it too. So any last thoughts? Nicolette, I'm going to start with Patty. What did you take out of this conversation?
I took a lot out of this conversation. And what I do want to say is I love the society. This Wize Move Society is so important because, like you were saying, you know, I can talk to my friends here and I can talk to my brother or my kids or stuff like that. But when you're talking on global, and you're learning something from other people and you're seeing what you have alike and what you have different in other countries. And that's really what makes you expand and grow. And I feel being over 50, I'm at the time in my life where I don't have to worry about little children anymore. I don't have to worry about all this stuff. So I can be really thinking. I can be really brainstorming. This is my time for really creativity. And if you lose that, because when you're younger, you have too many things on your plate. You have to take care of your children. You got to make sure they get to the soccer team, you know, all this stuff. Where when you're older, you have more time to grow and expand. And when you're talking with like-minded people from all over the world, it just you just get surrounded with so much more knowledge, and you do even more. Mm-hmm. So, and I thank you for this because I think it's so important to look at what we're doing, because I might retire from one job, but I'm going to keep working on something else. That's just, okay, I'll take my retirement from this job because I'm moving on to something else. I don't ever plan on just retiring and sitting home and knitting or something. That's not me.
No. You know, the moment I announced that I started my last business, so moving to the future, someone understood that it was going to be my last business. I said, no, this is the business that I start now. But, you know, I'm 61 by now. I can still, you know, I can see new things happening after this, and that is really, you know, very exciting only to think about. So thank you, Tatiana. Your last, your
So for me is yes, connect with others. We don't know what we don't know. And if we don't connect with others, we don't ask ourselves the questions. And I think those questions cannot not be asked as we go along through life.
yeah, your question.
And I was about to say something, Ingun, I know it's not very philosophical. If you haven't watched the launch video from Wize Move Society, you should watch. There was a yoga that shows how much more we can look after our health. So that goes to show how important it is to connect with others and learn things that we didn't know before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good. Tatiana, for you, because we are, you know, moving into Nicolette will close off the session with her takeaways, with her the most important point of this session. This is, you're going on a holiday for the next 4 weeks. You will be dearly missed. So looking forward to reconnect the second half of August. But enjoy your summertime, and thank you for all your contributions, your wisdom that you've shared so far. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will see you on Facebook at least.
Absolutely. Please join as a spectator. Nicolette, your...
Shall I? I can share my screen, but I see it's also time, so I'll just mention them. So I think the 5 important things. I was just writing them down in my garden this weekend. Like, what are the 5 most important things for a mindset from someone who would like to keep on working after 50? So my main one is be open to change. It's the mindset, and it's a little bit like you talked about it. Australian lady now being a blockchain expert. Embrace tech. I think Renee also mentioned it when she talked from an HR perspective. But if you don't have that attitude that you're willing to change and willing to adapt, then actually you can't do anything with someone in that age, on my perspective. And also think about what would you like to do the coming years. So when you're in your midlife, early 50s, have that thought or that discussion with it could be even with your other half or a friend, or before you see even a coach, or step to your HR manager. But what would you like to do the coming years? What would you like to do up till you're 70? We always say, oh, when I retire, but try to think further afield. What would you like to do the coming 20 years? And have that conversation about the future. As I say, to the government, for instance, as I said, in the Netherlands, I wish that more countries would embrace that, because they see we need those people. So hopefully we will have that government, research, employers working together, that this is not just about the individual, and create a plan. Have some small steps. As we all know, an elephant you only eat bite by bite. You can't change a career within a minute. But if, for instance, physical things might slow down, okay, maybe it takes a long journey, but try to adjust but have a plan and take it step by step. And last but not least, we've talked a bit about ageism, but unfortunately, we still have to prove our worth. I think that's something we need to realize, to show that we are knowledgeable, we will walk the extra mile, that we're not tired of walking that extra mile, and that our mind is still with it. And we all know it, but I think, we still have to prove that, unfortunately. But I think it's still important we do. Those are my 5 takeaways.
Thank you very much, Nicolette, for this, to be our guest. And thank you, Tatiana, and of course, Patty as well, to join us as our guest. It has been a wonderful session, and again, learned a lot, and we're really looking forward to the next one. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day, and wherever you are, enjoy.
Thank you very much.
To join us.
Happy holidays and have a good summer, everyone. And see you on the Wize Move Society.
Yes, absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.